Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. We recommend you start downloading us from Spotify where you can, just because Apple Podcasts has been a little wonky lately. Also, check out Off the Floor, link right here in the description. Speaking of Apple, I got nothing against them, but why pay the $1 upcharge, right? So just click on the link in the description. Get access to 10 different channels, including our draft channel. Yes, a lot of consternation over there today. Check it out. It's Off the Floor, the place for the most heat anywhere. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down your $5. You get $50 to play right away. Prize Picks, you can play across the sports spectrum. That Pacers-Knicks Eastern Conference Finals. You're going to need to get through that. Use Prize Picks. Use the code 5. Get your $50 to play right away. And now, today's episode.
Mercy. Luxurious. Heat Nation. Yeah. Mercy and Lago. Down to Biscayne. Yeah. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frauds. Down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing. Got it all banned. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. Got Brady Hawk. You can follow me at Brady Hawk 305. Took a one-day break, but that's okay. We had 7 episodes in 4 days before it. So got a lot you got to catch up with. I would recommend that you listen to the episode that I did with Gerald Bourguet, who covers the Phoenix Suns, because it will clarify a lot of your questions about why Kevin Durant, why now, what might it take. Gerald was really good on all that. But since we did that episode, there's been a draft lottery. And man, Heat fans are in their feelings. Look, I know it's been a rough few months. I get it. Okay. I mean, Heat versus Haters has compiled a whole list of things that have gone wrong over the past 12 months. I was going to make Brady or Alex ISO on it. Both refused. And I don't really care to do that. I just wanted one of them to do it. But it didn't go well for the Heat. And look, it doesn't affect what the Heat do next year. They still have the 20th pick. But fans have worked themselves into a pretzel here. Even like the normal fans. Like, yeah, there are some we know are doing this for engagement. But even the normal fans are like, that could have been us. So let's go through it, Brady, because it could have been them, but we both know it wouldn't have been them. They've never actually moved up in the draft lottery. Even if you don't think the thing is rigged, and I polled this, and 82% on Twitter, always the most rational about conspiracy theories, they think the lottery is rigged. But even if you don't think it was rigged, even if you don't think that Rico Harrison, that they basically, tried to patch things up from him trading a generational player to the Lakers of all things, which upped the TV ratings, which I know some fans have that conspiracy. And so, okay, well, we'll give Dallas this for their trouble. Or the fact that every time a star has been traded to Lakers, the team has gotten the lottery pick for the number 1 pick the next year. So I get why fans think it's, especially those who were alive when Patrick Ewing thing happened in 85 or whatever. I understand why some of those fans are a little freaked out today. But let's start with this, Brady, before we get into what the Heat should have done, shouldn't have done, based on a 1.8% chance of what happening last night happening to them, which we know it wouldn't have. Do you think the lottery is rigged?
It's not ridiculous to say that. I mean, for things to align this way, I know you're talking about, like the conspiracies out there, but it's a pretty real conspiracy. I don't know, like the odds of that happening. I think when you saw the lottery starting to get thrown out there from about like 14 to like 8, you're like, start looking at some of these teams that are jumping up, and it's like, okay, it wouldn't be crazy for the league to want Dallas to be at the top here. Does the league want Cooper Flagg going to Utah? Do they want Cooper Flagg going to Washington? No, they don't. As much as they try, these teams that have been so bad, like, don't end up getting any better because they keep falling out of the top 4. Like, they don't want the guy like that type of talent going there. The Spurs felt like the Spurs or the Mavs felt like the two options to go in one, because it's like, okay, you get Wemby and Cooper Flagg together, or you put Cooper Flagg on a pretty decent team and repay for the ratings jump that the Lakers got for getting Luka and all that whole conspiracy. So is it rigged? I think it's very possible, and that's why I just think this is funny, because if the Heat were in this position, there would be no rigging for the Heat to get Cooper Flagg at 1. Is just kind of my own conspiracy. Like the league does not want the Heat to get Cooper Flagg. Like that is not their way of thinking here. So the Heat would have been 14 if they were in the lottery. They legit, their 1% chance would have been going down to 14 somehow. So that's just my take.
This is just to show that the NBA has a real problem, because Brady is like the most rational Heat NBA observer that I know in his age bracket, and even he says it's rigged. I'm not going to say it's rigged because I just think it's too much trouble. I think the system is flawed. I understand what they're trying to do. I think it's better than the NFL, honestly. I know some NFL writers were out there. They tend to do this NFL versus NBA thing, and they were saying, see, this is why it's better not to have a lottery. No, it's better to have a lottery. It's better to weight it in some regard, or else you'll have these teams tanking like even worse than now. But the idea of a team that basically missed the play-in as they traded a generational player and then lost to Memphis in that one game, and that tilted everything at this point. Like I just, there has to be some other way to do it. I've said this before. Maybe there is some way, and I know Riley talked about something he and Andy have discussed, which seems way too complicated for me, but I'm sure if Andy explained it to me, I'd somehow understand it after a few days. But like the way that Pat explained it, I don't know what he was getting at, but I think there has to be some way. There has to be some way to incentivize teams not to tank down the stretch, and yet also not benefit a team that won roughly 40 games. I mean, and that has happened. Look, I go back to 2008 and the Derrick Rose thing. I mean, the Heat, Rat just admitted, I hope the league wasn't listening, they tanked. Towards the end of that season, they tanked. They ended up getting the most ping pong balls, whatever it was at the time, and they finished second. And Derrick Rose, Chicago was 13th or something, or 11th, and they shot all the way up to 1. And Derrick Rose got to go to his hometown. I understand why people view it this way. But I guess the other point of this, and then we'll get into what this actually means for the lottery teams and whether it affects the Heat at all, is that there was like a thin line to be like walked to even get in the position to get Cooper Flagg last night, right? Essentially, Dallas, yes, they got that pick. They had to win a coin flip with Chicago. So like this whole, to get that pick, I mean, imagine how you feel in Chicago right now. So I guess it's a lot to say, like there is a butterfly effect to all of this. Okay. So it's a lot to say, well, the Heat would have gotten that pick. We don't know what would have happened. I think there is a reasonable discussion to have, and I know there are some fans who are having it and will continue to have it, about whether or not it's right to be irrationally stubborn like the Heat were at the end of the year, and sometimes just throw your hands up and say, okay, the season's not working. Let's recoup the best asset we can. Now there was the complementary part to that, which was it would affect their future picks and the unprotecteds and all of that. If that didn't exist, maybe they just would have done it. But they didn't do it. They won those 2 games, and now they're picking 20th, and Cooper Flagg is going to be a Mav. And the other thing, Brady, and I'll let you get in here. The other thing is the Heat are always talking about the basketball gods and karma. Well, lately, the basketball gods haven't really worked all that well. I mean, teams that have pushed have sometimes paid for it. I guess the one team you could talk about that's not paying for it is the Knicks. Tibbs plays his guys all the time. And it's Boston players who are falling like flies. So, again, we'll see what happens with Jason Tatum. Your overall view now, before we get into the lottery effects, on the Heat and whether or not they just should have given up the rest of that season, lost one of those 2 games, last game at least, and then ended up in this position.
I mean, first of all, the hindsight view is 100%, obviously, because even if it isn't all linear, and it's not the same situation where they would have just gotten the number 1 pick. You're probably better off being in the mix where you have a chance at the pick, where you have, even if you're getting, a late lottery, we've seen what they've done in that range. And yes, I know the things that come up with the future drafts and everything. But I think, look, the Heat have been lucky enough not having to look in the mirror pretty often and have to make this decision. Like they've been in such a, a good state for a long time here. But this is one of the few times where it felt like they had to look in the mirror and say, okay, we aren't going anywhere with this current roster, with this direction of this team. It feels like we have to take a step back here and reassess. So if there was ever a time to do it, it was now. And the funniest part was there was a direct line to doing it, because when they weren't trying to tank, they lost 10 games in a row. With what was it, like 10, 12 games left in the season, where they had a real chance to do it, and they weren't even trying to do it. So like there's that part of it. It was like there was an easy chance to try and just fully tank the season and go that way. Obviously, it was a weird season. I think Spo wanted to win for the team and all that stuff that he was talking about later in the season, how much they enjoyed the play-in wins and all that stuff. But that got thrown out the window pretty quickly when they were losing by 40 to the Cavs in the first round. So, I mean, the quick view is they probably should have. I think with the view of this roster we're talking about and just accumulating assets and everything, like if you had 2 picks in the first round, maybe it makes it a little bit easier to move for some of the guys who we're talking about, these aging stars and everything like that. Or if you're not going to get the aging star and you have to fully rebuild, you have a chance to do that with 2 possibilities in this draft. So maybe they like the next draft a little bit better. Like maybe there's that aspect of it, and maybe this is like more of a longer term reset, or what does Pat like to say, retool? Yeah, like that's probably what this is. But they probably should have, but it worked out that way. And like I said, I really don't believe they would have found luck in this lottery. Like Dallas gets repaid for trading Luka to the Lakers to get this pick. Well, the Heat would not have gotten repaid for, not. What about them when they struck out on Dame, when they got all the odds against them? They didn't get a number 1 pick for that. Like, God forbid, they shot up at a lottery because of, being done wrong by the league.
Yeah. Again, we both know they weren't going to move up into the pick. We both know there's a butterfly effect. I understand your point about just shutting it down next time. This isn't going to make Heat fans feel any better about it. But again, would this have happened for them? Probably not. On the other side of this, we will get into who is in the lottery, how that might affect which teams go after particular players. So get to that in a second. But first, a word from Cousins USA. And now it's time for Who's on the Move, sponsored by our friends over at Cousins USA Moving and Storage, family owned and operated since 1996. They can service both residential and commercial moves, whether you're going across town, across the state, across country, and even across the globe. They have a 15,000 square foot private warehouse in Lauderhill, Broward County. The number 1 priority for Cousins Moving is transparency and being honest with their customers. They have a very low turnover, with most of their movers working for them for over 10 years. So find them online at Cousins Moving on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or visit the website at www.cousinsusa.com/5RSN. They've got an exclusive offer through 5RSN. You get 5 free wardrobe boxes with your next move, so there's no need to pack your clothes away in suitcases. Just mention 5 reasons. And now, who's on the move? Got 2 teams here. The Mavericks move all the way up to 1. The Spurs move up to 2. My God, every time. Philadelphia 3rd, Charlotte 4th, Utah 5th. Man, Washington Wizards Views quit today. I think like there's a Twitter site called Wizards Views. He basically was saying that. He or she, I'm not sure, that it's just a bunch of grown men throwing an orange ball through a basket. Like, that's where they're at. Finished 6th. By the way, I don't necessarily agree that the NBA wouldn't have wanted him in Washington. I feel like of the markets that was up there, that's one that they would like to work. It just rarely has. I mean, whenever the teams have gotten decent, like, I don't know if anybody's seen Shooting Stars, by the way, on Netflix. It's worth a watch. Arenas and Crittenden. Every time they've gotten close, something's happened. And then fans lose interest, and then they start cheering for Dwayne Wade, no matter which team is in town. But I don't think they would have had a problem with them in Washington, but I feel for Wizards fans. But they were actually trying to do things the right way at the end of the year. They did not get rewarded for that. New Orleans 7th, Brooklyn 8th, Toronto 9th. Houston has Phoenix's pick at 10. Remember that, because Phoenix might want that back for Kevin Durant. Portland, Chicago, Atlanta from Sacramento, San Antonio from Atlanta. So they picked 2nd and 14th. And then you go to Oklahoma City. Of course, that's from Miami. That's the pick that actually ended up being Miami's pick, but that's because they made the playoffs. Orlando 16, Minnesota from Detroit, Washington from Memphis, Brooklyn from Milwaukee, and of course Miami from Golden State. I'll have Adele on to talk about specifics with these picks, but just in general, you look at the top of that draft, okay? And from the very beginning, it's like, where is it? Okay, well, Dallas and San Antonio can go after Giannis now if they want, right? So as we start to talk about Giannis and we get to Durant after that, do you think that what happened yesterday hurt the Heat's chances?
I don't know if it hurt it. I would say it stayed the same because to be honest, my overall thought on it this whole time is like, it's the pure example of the fact that the Heat are going to be far from in the mix from a trade for like a guy like Giannis. Like if you can dangle a number 1 pick in Cooper Flagg, like over a team like Milwaukee to try to get Giannis, they're not going to accept Tiny Hawk as a second rounder. Like it's not going to happen. I feel like here. So you're in a position where then you do turn to Phoenix and you see what these teams are going to be willing to offer, and we'll see. But the Giannis one just feels crazy. I know I keep seeing like his what he wants on his list and everything, and it's like, oh, it could line up with Miami. But the number 1 thing was like he wanted to play with a second star, and you're gonna have to trade your second star if you go get Giannis. Like he's gonna be playing in Milwaukee, but nicer weather. Like it's not gonna be a better situation. I feel like, and I just don't think they'll end up accepting anything like that. But besides that point, the thing I'll say this, because they are going to be picking 20. Let's be honest. And if the trusting the front office, I think in the most doubtful, pessimistic Heat fan would trust that they're probably going to get a gem at 20. Like they're going to find a decent player, a diamond in the rough, because their scouting department, Adam Simon, does a great job. And they always seem to cash in that range. The issue is that this player picked 20th is going to be in such a terrible position, in my opinion, because they're going to be like have this weight on them. I don't want to say weight because there's not crazy expectations, but like they're going to be the player in the piece that has to like save the roster heading into next season, because I don't believe there's going to be, as Pat was asked, are there going to be major changes? And I know he ended up saying there needs to be changes, but at first he said no. And I don't believe there's going to be major changes. So with that said, I think the one major change you're going to see on the roster next season is you're going to add a rookie. You're going to add a late first rounder, and there's going to be like this pressure. It's like that he's going to be the one change on this roster, the one youthful piece. It was kind of like Khalil Ware this season, except there were bigger expectations to start this past season because Jimmy was still on the roster. But with the new direction of this team, there's going to be just so many eyeballs on this poor rookie that gets picked 20th. And
but Brady, does it take any pressure? I'll just throw this at you. Does it take any pressure off that pick if they re-sign Davion Mitchell and if Jimmy flames out here? Because to me, I get the arguments about wanting to trade him earlier if you weren't going to sign him. I understand all that. But look, he's clearly proven their point, hasn't he? Like I think about him being a $60 million a year player. Not that he's not a good player, but somebody texted me after he had the huge game a couple nights ago that says that was playoff Jimmy. Let's see if he does it in 2 nights. And then in 2 nights he took 9 shots. So I'm just wondering, does that play into this? I mean, if Jimmy wins a championship, then oh my God, the 20th pick might as well not even come to Miami. But I'm saying, like, does that change it at all for you?
I don't think the Jimmy factor should matter at all. Like, I think we should just be beyond that. It shouldn't be like this measuring stick with what Jimmy's doing compared to what Miami's doing. Even though I know Pat was watching the Warriors, anybody, like I know he kept mentioning like watching those Warriors games and referencing them. But I just don't think so. I think. I mean, we could have a full debate on the Jimmy thing itself. Like that Golden State team that he's playing with right now, and they need to play off Jimmy. That roster is 100 times worse than the rosters he was dealing with here in Miami, which is crazy to say. But I don't think so. But I still think there's going to be pressure on the guy they pick. I just do. I think there's not in a bad way, not like that he's going to have to carry the franchise like when Dwayne got here, but it's like a case of needing him. They're just going to be an expectation on him with the roster.
All right, Brady's going to actually in and out a little bit, unless it's me. He's going to jump back in a second. I don't think it'll lessen a lot. Just I'll answer the question too. But I think it would have been a heck of a lot worse if Jimmy advances further. And I understand the Curry deal, obviously, but again, that kind of also proves both points. It proves Jimmy's camp's point that he needed someone else to help him out. The Heat should have gotten him that player, but also proves the Heat point that, okay, well, we're not going to pay you $61 million if you can't be that guy anymore. or 60 or 58 or whatever it was. All right, so let's go through it. Brady, I think your connection is better now, unless it was me. Okay, I'll say this. I don't think Dallas will go after Giannis in a huge way because the roster doesn't fit. Like, you're going to play Giannis next to AD? Like, yes, you'll have one of the great defensive lines of all time if they care. Where's the spacing? I don't you don't pass on Giannis for spacing, but I don't even know. I don't know if Mavericks fans hate Nico so much right now that I don't even know what they'll be all in on. But I don't know about the Giannis part of it. But if I'm San Antonio, Wemby is a spacer, right? Mm-hmm. AD was only a spacer in the finals against the Heat. If I'm San Antonio, I offer Castle, number 2 overall pick, and whatever it takes to get him. Because, Pop not being there, I would assume would be a factor for Giannis. He said he wants to play in a city with no state tax, okay, Texas, like Florida, in a stable organization that's proven it can win. So do you think the Spurs would make that move? Try to?
I think so for sure. I mean, they've been wanting to, I think, make the win now move anyway. I actually do like the fit. Like that is a scary front line. Like that, as you mentioned, like that is something. And that's why it just gets back to the Heat, where it's like this whole Giannis thing is just ridiculous because it's just they're never going to have enough assets to get a guy like that. Like we were debating the aging star. If you do cash in your chips for a guy like Kevin Durant, I get that conversation. Like that one makes sense. That's a realistic as even though we've talked about things that are unrealistic in the past, like that's one of the more realistic options. The Giannis thing is not. Like you just gave a package from San Antonio that Miami would not be even close to being able to match. Like they're not going to be able to match, a rookie of the year with a number 2 pick, and there's more assets on the roster. Like they could throw even some more young guys, like Vassell or some other guys in the mix. There's just a lot of young pieces there. Honestly, I do think that's a real possibility. Like that, they just cashed in. Like they weren't preparing to have the number 2 pick. Like this is just kind of this is free money they have in their hand. Like why not try to spend it and try to cash in on it? So does that change the landscape of the trade market as well? Like, I guess that's a question for you as well. Like, I don't know. Depending on what Giannis gets, I mean, with the things that were being going on a few years ago, as you mentioned with McHale and Gobert and all these guys that were getting traded for like this crazy things. Like, well, let's see what Giannis gets, and then maybe that ends up setting the new market here before maybe Kevin Durant gets traded. So maybe that does help in their case of trying to get Kevin Durant.
It could. I'll tell you this. First thing, I do think they're going to make the run in him. I also think if you're Philadelphia trying to do a quick rebuild, that you at least reach out. I know that sounds crazy because they have the Paul George contract. If somebody wants to take that on, okay. Again, we even had the conversation with Sedano about how that's a horrible contract, but that the Heat have sometimes taken on distressed assets before, and that's worked. But I can see Philadelphia making a run. I don't see him having any interest in Charlotte, Utah, Washington, New Orleans. Brooklyn has the 8th. But there's a lot of state tax in New York. Now, I know Brooklyn's been talked about for him before. We're probably going to have Howard Beck on at some point. But let's get to the Durant conversation now. Because Houston has the 10 pick. That's solidified. We had Gerald on, and he talked about Houston still being the favorite in his view, but he could see potential with Miami if they got involved with Ware. Again, we'll see where Houston is at this point, but they lost in the first round to a more experienced Golden State team. You would think Durant would be the kind of piece who could be the scorer for them down the stretch. We know how good defensively they are already. Do you foresee the Heat, if Houston gets in the picture, dangles the number 10 pick, some of their prospects, the Van Vliet thing worked out in their favor contractually, the way that they just sorted it out. Like, do you see Houston as the biggest threat to Miami if Miami wants Durant?
For sure. And as we know from the past, like let's not be duped again. The team that we're debating is going to be in front of Miami probably won't be the team that ends up swooping in and being in front of Miami, as we learned with Milwaukee. Like there's probably going to be this dark horse team that does have the assets that just feels like, okay, why not? Let's try to cash in on a Kevin Durant type player. And that's the team that comes and steals them from everybody. The question is with Houston, who is the headlining player there? Like, are they cashing in a Jalen Green? Are they cashing in like what type of player are they?
I would, but would Phoenix even want him next to Booker? I mean, he'd have to go somewhere else. I mean, to me, if I'm Houston, okay, you've got some potential for very good players out of their mix, right? Sengun showed some warts in the playoffs. We know how good he is, though. Jalen Green, you talk to people in Houston, he hasn't improved a whole lot in the last couple of years. There's a clear scoring set there. Some of their others, it's like they've gotten lost a little bit. Jabari Smith, Cam Whitmore had trouble getting time this year. Who was the rookie they took, the shooter this year? Sedano told me he was going to be rookie of the year. He hardly played. Reed Shepherd, right? They've got a ton of players. Sorry, I'd throw that to George. They got a ton of young players. Like, you could put together a very compelling package if that's the direction Phoenix wants to go. Now, I don't know that that's the way they want to go, but the way that Gerald talked about it, they're looking to kind of reset around Booker. Like, they don't want to go all the way backwards. So it makes sense for them to try to find at least like good, but already promising young players in the mix to surround Booker with if you're going to trade Durant. I still see Houston as the most compelling option for the Suns to make a trade with. I don't know if they're going to want to do it, but having the 10th pick, I mean, that's something else that they could throw in there. Phoenix could send that somewhere else. We know that Ishbia kind of has an F them picks philosophy, but it would also change their whole pick load there. So I think right now it's this, okay? I know I'm going to be told that the Heat social media account does its own thing, and they do. All right. I was a little surprised they posted my question to Pat, if you saw it on the Heat account, because you knew, I knew, everybody knew who he's talking about. It's who I was trying to get him to talk about. He basically talked about him without saying his name. For the Heat to post that and not take it down, I'm going to get a message about this. No, they do their own thing. I get it. But it sends a definite message to the fans, I think. I think it's pretty clear what the strategy is now. You take a long shot at Giannis. You don't have enough. Okay, unless he's like, I won't even report anywhere else. Like, I will go to Greece. I will travel the world. See me later. Unless he does that, I don't see it. I don't know how they would have enough. And then now the fans are all like, well, they gotten enough assets. Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, if they, if they'd accumulated 15 first-round picks like OKC, or even to look at Houston, what San Antonio can offer, yes. But I think the other issue here is there's a huge tilt to the West, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Brady, because I've been saying now for, I think it's twice since 1999, which the Knicks were the 8th seed and upset the first seeded Heat in the playoffs. Okay, in the 2000s, the last time I checked, and that was about a year ago, there are 2 8th seeds in the East that have had better records than the 8th seed in the West. So we're talking 25 years now. The league is tilted west, and now the number 1 pick just went west again. And now Jason Tatum may be out for all of next season. And the Cavs have been shown to be a little shaky. I guess Indiana's going to have to win 3 titles before anybody believes in them, but nobody does. And the Knicks, I mean, Tibbs will drive them into the ground eventually. And I'll leave you with this. Forget the lottery now, but just what's happening in the playoffs, what happened with Tatum. Does that make you think the Heat are going to lean more into let's try to compete right away strategy than they already were, which they probably already were?
100%. The East is wide open right now. We're about to witness a Indiana Pacers, New York Knicks Eastern Conference Finals here that we weren't expecting. One of these teams could possibly be in the NBA Finals. The East is wide open. Like, there's a real chance. And here's the kicker in all of this, because you keep mentioning. And look, if Giannis heads west, like if Giannis goes to San Antonio, is like the main part. It's like the whole league is in the West. The question becomes, what does Kevin Durant want? What does the rest of his career look like? I don't want to go. You got to come out east, right? Like, right. What are you going to go to Houston for, to go in that absolute bloodbath in the Western Conference? Like, if he's legitimately looking to close out his career here, to try and compete for another championship, to continue to try and win. I'm not saying it's only Miami, but it limits your options, because I do think a lot of Eastern Conference teams are going to have to step up. And here's the other part of this. I do think a lot of Eastern Conference teams are going to begin to step up. Like, when I mentioned these like dark horse teams entering the mix for a lot of these different players, I think you're going to see a lot of these Eastern Conference teams take swings because of that factor. Like Detroit, like I could see Detroit taking a big swing on some of these players because they have assets and there's a real opportunity here to push forward in the Eastern Conference. So that's going to be the interesting part of this. But 100%, I think that's one of the most interesting trends here that we're seeing is like, especially when like we're talking about these, like an aging player, like Giannis is fine. Giannis could go to the Western Conference, compete. There's no big deal about that. He's teaming up with another young stud. But when you're Kevin Durant and you're in this position, I don't think there's a reason not to head east. Like, it makes much sense.
All right, we'll close it here. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties on both ends today. I don't have my mic working. Brady's camera's a little out. But here's the other part of this that you mentioned, and I know you're still listening, is that the Heat, okay, in their pitch to Durant should be that. If they get an opportunity to pitch him. And again, there's a trade that has to be executed. But part of what they should make clear in the back circles is, okay, how many times has LeBron made it to the finals in the East? How many times has he made it in the West? Like, it's different out there. And it's not tilting back the other direction. Like, who were the last big stars that came East? Dame? Is that it? Dame from Portland to Milwaukee? We know how that affected everybody. I guess at the time,
Harden.
Drew came back from Portland. He was never really in Portland. Like, who?
I said Harden originally when he. Like,
I mean, Harden's been everywhere. You know, exactly. I don't count him. But yeah, but look, I mean, everybody goes west. Everybody goes west. It's been like that for years and years and years. You just have a better opportunity to win these. Shaq found that all the way back in 2004. Came to Miami, got right back to the finals. I think that is something that would be. You got that spreadsheet, that PowerPoint or whatever. LeBron getting to the finals in the West. LeBron getting to the finals in the East. Boom. Done. Anyway, well, I don't think it's done. Nothing's that easy, but it's something. It's a direction I would go. All right, Brady, appreciate it. I'll be doing a pod with Alex later. We'll figure out some of this technical stuff. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks to our sponsors, cousinsusa.com/5RSN. Prize Picks, use the code 5.